Hey YouTube, Phil Gallagher here for your daily D&T. This is round 2 of this league, and we're opening on a mulligan. This hand is not great. We're going to be keeping it. And we're either tossing back Swords to Plowshares or Sword of Fire and Ice. I think I'm going to toss back Sword of Fire and Ice. We've got a lot of clunk in our hand, and if we're playing against something fair like a Delver deck, or we're playing against a Depths deck, just having access to the Swords to Plowshares early literally might be the difference between a win and a loss. So good. Keeping my Swords to Plowshares. Give me a land, friend. Atomic, I accept that. Am I just... There's a possibility that I want to wait a turn for a Stoneforge Mystic and try to let Tomic go and absorb a Lightning Bolt before I just, like, ram the Stoneforge out. Awkwardly, though, that would mean putting Cavern on Human, which I don't love. It's a really interesting turn. Will my opponent bolt Atomic if I play it out? If they have another creature, the answer is yes. If they don't have another creature, the answer is probably no. So maybe I am better off just playing the Stoneforge Mystic and just getting Jete. This play allows me to wait as long as possible on the Cavern. And if I draw a land, I can put this on Elemental and potentially just reset it to play Tomic afterwards. Okay. Gonna kind of try to put my opponent in a tricky spot here. So by doing this, I'm able to go and get my Batter Skull, which represents substantial life gain. And I also open myself up to drawing a land and just gaining life immediately via Jete. Sulfuric Vortex is probably the scariest thing here. Alright, I missed on my land drop. So for my opponent to beat me, they would need Exquisite Firecraft plus Fire Blast or a Sulfuric Vortex. Price of Progress plus Fire Blast also does it unless I hold up my Wasteland, so I'm not going to play Vial. I'm just going to pass the turn with my Batter Skull up. Okay, my opponent does not have the answer, and they just concede the game there. So what do I want for burn? The burn matchup is really weird in that, like, your opponent has hands with creatures and they have hands without creatures, and you really need to approach the two in completely separate ways. So for their hands without creatures, this is insane. For their hands with creatures, you really want, like, swords and paths, and life can be kind of awkward. So, like, of the cards that you can consider playing, it's these. Let's start by figuring out what I want to take out and go from there. Palace Jailer is too slow. This is the wrong sort of matchup for Mirren Crusader. Recruiter is relatively slow, and there are also situations where, like, you don't really want Sword of Fire and Ice, you just want to be looking for the pieces of equipment that say gain life on it. So, as of right now, that's 4 of these cards. I didn't want to do that. So that's 4 of that pile of cards, and I don't necessarily want to be going and boarding them all. So, like, for example, I probably don't want to play the Path to Exiles when I'm on the play, but on the draw they're more of a consideration to soak up initial damage from creatures. Revoker is pretty bad unless they show me Grim Lavamancer. So maybe I'll start by getting rid of those, and then just trim one of my recruiters, play this configuration. I think I'm okay with that. Like, there's some worlds where you want to keep the recruiters in just because they're, like, basically more copies of Stoneforge Mystic when you get hands that allow you to, like, start with an Ether Vial, because then, like, you get turn 3 recruiter and put Stoneforge Mystic in the same turn. But on your non-Vial hands, recruiter's largely dead. This matchup's a little bit dicey when you're playing against a good player. We'll be keeping this one, and I'll be throwing back my Caracas. Relatively speaking, this is a very strong hand. Hey, we got our Caracas back. The Goblin Guide is probably going to do 4 to 6 points of damage, which is not great for us. Rift Bolt means bad things for me. It means the Stoneforge Mystic is just eating it. Or it means that Tomic is just eating it. Alright. So I'm just playing out of planes, that's for sure. Tomic or Stoneforge will just get Rift Bolted. If I Stoneforge and get Jitte, I can go for a Jitte connection on turn 4. If I just Tomic now, my Tomic just dies to that Rift Bolt. I take 2. Actually, playing the Tomic might just be better. Like, just try to slow down my opponent's ability to Goldfish me. If I'm too reliant on the Stoneforge Mystic, I might just get into trouble. So this way gives me the possibility of perhaps, like, end of turn ambush with Stoneforge Mystic, and I can use my Council's Judgment to remove the Goblin Guide. Well, really glad my opponent had the Goblin Guide. Otherwise, I would have just, like, flooded into oblivion in this match. Okay, does that change anything? Honestly, I kind of just want to save that for later for one of my own cards. If I can just Council's Judgment away the Goblin Guide. If my opponent has gas left, I probably don't win. Like if they're sitting on like a bolt and a smash to smithereens or something like that, I don't see myself getting there. But if they're just sitting on a couple of mountains, there's hope for me. Hey, that's a mountain. Sure. Do you just have double Fire Blast? Alright, well, yeah, you don't beat that. I don't think I'm going to do anything differently when I'm on the draw. This all seems fine. My second recruiter gets a little bit better when I'm on the play. But I don't think there's actually anything I want to change. This is not playable. This is solid. I'll be keeping this one. And I think I'm just going to pitch my sword. With the Thalia that I'm going to be playing, this is just going to be way too slow. And this is why I considered boarding out my Sword of Fire and Ice in the first place. Because that happened last game as well. Oddly enough, the equipment that reads protection from red, not necessarily the best against this mono-red deck. Alright, opponent starting on mono Goblin Guides. Fair. Give me a land. Yeah! So in this matchup, you tend to play your planes out first because price of progress is a real concern. You don't want to get domed for 4 or more damage in the mid-game if you can avoid it. Even if it comes at the cost of, like, maybe not having, like, the super best optimal play sequence in the world or something like that. It really just tends to be better to not open yourself up to price of progress. And I think I'll just be porting my opponent this turn. I'm going to think about it, though, because like there is also merit to just, like, Caracas pass. And just make my opponent's life awkward, try to drag the game on longer. I'm going to port. I think port and Caracas as lines are both good. You know, last turn, if I had played out the port, I would be able to port with Caracas up this turn. But that would not be showing the proper degree of respect to price of progress, in my opinion. This is slightly awkward in that if my opponent has it, like exactly the card Lightning Bolt, they can take out my Thalia here for free. Alright, suspend a Rift Bolt. That's fine. So now the question becomes, how do I want to pilot this turn? I can just take 2 damage, Council's Judgment away the Eidolon, never worry about it again. Or I can, like, Caracas, bounce my Thalia, and protect it from that Rift Bolt. I think since I have a second Thalia, I'm okay feeding 1 to this Rift Bolt. Because it's going to cost my opponent half of their turn anyway. And taking the 2 here to answer the Eidolon is fine, since, like, if I just protected the Thalia via Caracas, I'd take 2 from the attack anyway. So this minimizes the amount of damage that I'm actually going and taking from the Eidolon. Alright, so my opponent frees some of the cards from their hand. Here's to hoping I draw something relevant. Hey-oh, that's fantastic. All right, so let's set that to 1. Play Caracas. Play Thalia. We're up to 4 damage from a potential price of progress, which I don't love, but hopefully we blanked a bunch of my opponent's cards. All right. Searing Blaze targeting me and Thalia, so we'll bounce our Thalia. But unfortunately, that's a spell with multiple targets, and that's just for a prowess trigger. So my opponent gets a lightning bolt out of their Swift Spear this turn. That's interesting. So I could go 1-2, Chalice on 2, and then play my Thalia. How insane is that? It would leave my opponent on very few outs to actually win the game. But I would lose access to Tomic and Stoneforge. So after what I've boarded in, I would have these cards plus whatever tribe I put my Cavern on. So I have exactly 6 mana, right? So in order to do this, I would have to play Chalice on 2, then put this on Human. Oh, that's super weird. I think I'm in for it. I think I'm in for it. Cavern of Souls doing work. So the reason why I'm willing to go in on this is because my opponent doesn't have that many relevant cards. Yeah, so I'm willing to take this hit. That's totally fine. It's not a lethal hit. It would have been lethal with Fire Blast. But now I'm able to go and blank most of the attacks via Caracas. So I just go like uncounterable idiot. My opponent is finding this just as humorous as I am. So now it's like Sulfuric Vortex, Fire Blast, maybe Exquisite Firecraft. My opponent should be on almost no outs. Am I willing to just trade that Thalia for some damage? I think I am. And by that I mean if my opponent casts an instant or sorcery. I think I can make this cheeky play this turn, but once my opponent has a handful of cards in play, this becomes less good. Alright, you have Fire Blast me and put me to 1. So if my opponent attacks me and puts me to maybe I do need to keep clocking with both and then just bouncing the Tomic. I just have to respect the fact that like multiple prowess triggers can actually force this bigger than Tomic. Man, did you just draw another Fire Blast after I did all of that? Alright, I'm a little salty about that loss. I'm not gonna lie. I played to my out so well there. But it is what it is. And yeah, we're gonna get like Mom. Alright, we weren't gonna have an awful lot coming. Alright, good games. See you all tomorrow for more Daily D&T.